Welcome to the Top Cut here at Cycloturtle Blaze in Big Riviera, California for our very big League Cup that occurred today. We have our top 8 representatives, and here in the quarterfinals, I am Jesus Coronel, that is Dennis Geisler. We have David Hutner versus Tyler Deacy for our first of 4 quarterfinals here at Cycloturtle Blaze. And it's going to be David on perspective with Rayquaza, Chien-Pao, Incineroar, Cluttermane, Ogerpon, Wellspring, and Urshifu Rapid Strike, while Tyler's going to be on the Zamazenta, Chien-Pao, Raging Bolt, Dragonite, Amoonguss, and Ditto.
Yeah, Tyler's been all over that Zamazenta with the Chien-Pao, with the Pao Knight stuff, the physical priority moves that you have there, and not a ton of ways for David to straight up stop it. And it does have a lot of value against David's team, but that's not to say that David has absolutely nothing to play against it. So I guess I'm just curious what he thinks is the right choice against a team like this, especially because approaching the end of the regulation, the Pao Knight Zama stuff is pretty good, and we'll probably see a little bit of fairly high-level play. Rayquaza isn't. But obviously David has gotten a lot of value out of it, so
I wouldn't say that Rayquaza will do much. Like, yeah, you can spam Extreme Speed back. It's just like, how much value are you really getting from it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. It'll certainly, and that's the thing, is that the big problem with Rayquaza with these moves is that it doesn't really do anything to Steel types, particularly a boosted Steel type like Zamazenta. Which
is the lead here for Tyler, alongside that Chien-Pao. Is going to be David on the Fluttermane and Ogerpon. So Sword of Ruin's going to activate, Dauntless Shield's going to activate. I think this Zamazenta's actually in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, my big concern, honestly, for David is how do you do damage to Zamazenta? Like, period. Like, even aside from, like, oh, how do you do a lot of damage to Zamazenta? How do you knock out Zamazenta? How do you, like, hit Zamazenta for damage that will stick to it to a serious degree? Especially knowing that Amoonguss, well, actually, the Amoonguss has Sludge Bomb, so that's not a problem. But how do you just get rid of Zamazenta over a period of not way too many turns?
Hopefully Urshifu is one of those ways as David switches out the Ogerpon for that Urshifu. And Fluttermane hangs on with 14 HP against that Ice Spinner from Chien-Pao. Moonblast does half to Zamazenta, and Fluttermane gets doubled up and KO'd by a Behemoth Bash as well.
Yeah, I guess getting half of the Zamazenta's HP down with Moonblast is really big. I really thought that Ice Spinner was going to KO. That's got to be a pretty bulky Fluttermane, honestly.
And there is the Rayquaza from David. It's going to be a little bit of an awkward spot, because although you would like to click Dragon Descent onto the Zamazenta, I don't think you can. So I think your damage against Zamazenta probably has to be at Surging Strikes, but Tyler could easily just go Terra Dragon to mitigate that. Oh, that's actually interesting targeting from the Choice Star Urshifu.
Yeah,
I actually like this because
you have to get rid of Chien-Pao.
Yeah, I like this because it actually just gets rid of the problem against for Rayquaza, which is taking an Ice Spinner.
Yeah, that you have to get rid of Chien-Pao right now if you are David, and I wonder how Ty wants to play around the fact that that's kind of the play.
Oh, there's a Dragonite coming in here, so that does take away a potential Searching Strikes into that slot, and there is David's Terra onto the Urshifu Rapid Strike to Water.
Yeah, and it will take away the resistance to Sucker Punch, if that's how Tyler wants to get around getting probably taken down.
Alright, there is
no Sucker Punch.
Yeah, there's no Sucker Punch. There's Searching Strikes. Oh, that's bulky! Oh, wait.
Yeah, Chien-Pao actually...
No, never mind. Never mind. It's always the first that it's like, oh, wait a minute, it might live it. No, it won't.
Yeah, it's always hard to gauge how much of the bar was taken down by any particular hit.
Sword of Ruin's now gone from Tyler's side of the field, and now this Rayquaza has a little bit of free reign to go for that Dragon Ascent. It's going to go into the atmosphere, and in comes into the Dragonite! I can never get that right, man!
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense that Dragonite took that hit. It's just a neutral hit. It does now have the ability
Oh boy, that's an Amoonguss.
Yeah, actually, yeah, the Amoonguss is really nice to have here, because Urshifu probably has to get right out of there. The problem is, like, even if you force something like that, Dragonite shouldn't be faster than Rayquaza, is it?
No, not without an extreme speed.
Faster than Rayquaza, so it'll have to extreme speed. and that will kind of limit its effectiveness because it just has to click the big extreme speed button. Which
Here's another thing I gotta point out, because Rayquaza would love to quick Dragon Descent on the Among Us, but I think a Terra Water's incoming.
Yeah, I think what makes the most sense is a Terra Water here from the Amoonguss.
And the Ogerpon switches in for the Urshifu, and yeah, there's the Terra for Tyler. I assume they're going to Terastallize the Amoonguss to water. And no, Dragonite the normal is it's going to try to knock out this this Rayquaza at -1.
Yeah, it is at -1. You do have the extreme speed, and honestly, this is probably going to get more value in the grand scheme of the battle than Terra Water Amoonguss.
Does it KO though? It does not at -1. It gets the Dragonite into the Dragonite?
I think that makes sense, because you want to get the Dragonite out of the way. Because, I mean, again, that's the thing that's scary. That's the thing that might win the game, is Dragonite there. Although you do have to wonder, what is Amoonguss about to do?
Yeah, I'm wondering about that one too, because it could be a Spore. Sludge Bomb in here from Slide. It's going to take a bit. That's a lot of damage to the Ogerpon. No poison, but it's not going to take another one. And in comes Zamazenta now without a Dauntless Shield boost.
Yeah, and is Dragon Ascent Contact?
It is.
Okay, then it will drop to Dragon Ascent against Amoonguss. So Rayquaza... Amoonguss can pretty easily Rage Powder here, and...
Follow me.
Yeah.
To redirect a potential Body Press away from the Rayquaza, and it was Body Press. It knocks out Ogerpon, so I think in order for David to win this game, he needs to knock out the Amoonguss right here with Dragon Ascent. It goes after the Zamazenta. It's not great. It takes out the Zamazenta, but I think if a Sludge Bomb connects to the Rayquaza, I don't think Urshifu beats Amoonguss.
I'm curious what happens in that matchup. I don't think Urshifu wins, but I'm at least curious to see it try.
It's Sludge Bomb, so Rayquaza's going to drop. I seriously don't like that play, because I would think the bigger issue at hand would be that Amoonguss, because if you go in a one-on-one situation between Urshifu and Zamazenta, Urshifu clearly wins with that Choice Scarf.
Probably. And I mean, that's assuming that Dragon Ascent does one-hit KO the Amoonguss, which I wouldn't necessarily guarantee.
There's a Surging Strikes. It's going up against a resisted hit. Yeah, that's not doing a whole lot. It's going to take a lot of Rocky Helmet damage
than it will to Amoonguss. That's the whole point of bringing Amoonguss, to be completely honest. There's a lot of value to Amoonguss, but the big thing about it, and especially why you bring Rocky Helmet, is for this specific interaction.
Yeah, and that was why I presumably think that Dragon Ascent into the Amoonguss was the better play, because now you just get hit with a Spore, and now you can't do anything. Tyler's going to win game 1.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, would Dragon Ascent have knocked out Amoonguss? Because if it wouldn't have...
It's base 120, it's a flying type, so it's super effective.
Yeah, and Amoonguss is just a big bulky guy, and it would have knocked out Rayquaza in turn, so if it did not knock out Amoonguss, it would have been basically a certain loss for David. And it was a certain loss in this scenario too, but... if David was very confident that it just wasn't going to knock out, then there's no reason to try it.
Yeah. Okay, let's just go on to game number 2, because that was really I just think it was questionable for David to...
I think it's questionable if he thought it might have been able to KO, but if he's been playing Rayquaza for however many months and has presumably played against a bunch of Amoongusses, I don't know. I could imagine that he would know better than I would whether that would KO or not, and if it doesn't, then there's no real reason to try it. In any case, I do think you have to switch things up a little bit. For Tyler, getting hit by the Moonblast so early, certainly a downside, because it meant that Zamazenta... Because remember, Zamazenta had a lot of threat in that game just by being a Steel type and taking so little damage. It is Steel fighting, so it does take neutral damage against Dragon Ascent, which we saw do...
Over half.
Third, yeah. It wasn't over half, but
it was a KO.
Yeah, but it wasn't... It was a little bit under half as the damage that was dealt to it.
And that was without Dauntless Shield.
Yeah, and that was without Dauntless Shield, though, so Zamazenta could potentially take a lot more of a beating if it stayed at +1 the entire time and just hung around.
Okay, that's a much better adaptation from Tyler, actually. You know, seeing that Amoonguss is leading next to the Zamazenta, meaning that his Moonblast cannot be redirected away from the Zamazenta from this Flutter Mane, and yeah, that's a really problematic lead for David.
Yeah, this is very good for Tyler, because as you mentioned, yeah, I honestly think one of the best ideas for David right now might be clicking Perish Song and trying to get both of these Pokemon off the field so that Zamazenta resets its defense boost, and Amoonguss can't really sit there as much, but even then, that is not ideal if you are David, and you would lose your Flutter Mane for it. Like, I think you still have to try to click your moves, but yeah, Rage Powder comes through.
Yeah, I don't think there's much David could even do in that scenario, because it's just going to mean that Searching Strikes is going to do less damage to Amoonguss than it is going to take the Urshifu again.
Yeah, you really have to U-turn in that scenario, or even just hard switch out. Not going for that in front of the Rage Powder, that's a little bit questionable for me. That's the part that I start to say questionable about.
Yeah, that's just a whole lot of nothing there from the Urshifu. Let's see what the Flutter Mane does here. It does click Moonblast. It's alright to take a Moonblast down to half, but it's going to be a body press to the Urshifu and it gets KO'd.
Yeah, I honestly, I would have preferred a Behemoth Bash into the Flutter Mane, but maybe Ty just knew it wasn't going to KO.
I think the more thing is, it's like, as long as he has the Moonblast, he never has to worry about the Flutter Mane. I think that's the logic.
Yeah, but Amoonguss is going to drop to this next turn.
Yeah, as we see the Rayquaza come in.
Yeah. I mean, even regardless, basically anything that came in was going to finish off Amoonguss this turn, especially with the lock into the Moonblast. The question is just how much will Flutter Mane take in return? Because remember, the whole reason why Ty had any issues with that last game is because Flutter Mane got a clean Moonblast down onto Zamazenta. If Ty can prevent that in this game, Ty's gonna win. It's gonna be really hard for David to play around that.
So Flutter Mane switch out.
Yeah.
So whatever comes in, it's gonna have to really have to make a count. Oh, it's Chien-Pao. Oh boy, that's a sort of ruin move. But I think that might be hurting David more right now.
Potentially.
Okay, no, Behemoth Bash into the Chien-Pao. It is going to go down to its Focus Sash immediately. Important to note, there was no Rage Powder from its Amoonguss this turn, so this Rayquaza kind of has free rein to choose its target. Oh, it's Swords Dance.
Did get to Swords Dance there, although I wonder what Amoonguss is going to do, because it's either going to take out Chien-Pao, or it's going to
spore the Rayquaza.
Or it's going to spore the Rayquaza. And that means that it's going to take the sleep turn next turn, which will be an opportunity potentially to switch out the Amoonguss and get a turn of... oh, no switch out.
No, and there's Rayquaza taking his first mandatory turn of sleep here, and the Rage Powder does come out, so Sacred Sword was never going to be safe against that Zamazenta at all, and unfortunately, it's a one-on-one trade between the Amoonguss and the Chien-Pao.
Yeah, and it does mean that Amoonguss gets knocked out, which is big, although Rayquaza is going to take a bunch of damage against Zamazenta now because the Ice Spinner. That is the one downside about Ice Spinner, is that it is contact, and so you can drop to something like that, unlike Icicle Crash. I don't think it's contact.
But there's body press, and thankfully there's no sort of ruin anymore, so it is doing less than what it was previously, and we're going to see Flutter Mane come back in from David. It's choice specs, so it's got to lock into either any of its moves, and there's the Chien-Pao now from Tyler.
Yeah, and the thing is, David is like behind. Like, you can't really, like, you can't really play this.
Yeah,
right now.
You got a Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam here.
Yeah, well, and I guess what I'm saying is that David is so far behind.
Tyler Terras.
Yeah. David is so far behind at this point that taking any damage on Rayquaza is pretty bad, and at this point you kind of just have to hope. And that's also a really nice use of the Terra Ghost on the Chien-Pao to dodge the extreme speed when it's usually fake out.
Yeah, and now we're going to see this Flutter Mane also go for that Terrestrialization. It's going to be that Terra Fairy. And because Chien-Pao and Flutter Mane want the same 135 speed stop, I think this means that Chien-Pao's faster than Flutter Mane.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, we saw it was faster in Game 1. It's possible that...
And it's two turns of sleep from David on that Rayquaza, unfortunately. And we're going to see the Ice Spinner just knock out the Rayquaza, and I think that is just game over.
Yeah, and frankly, it wouldn't have mattered. Extreme Speed into Chien-Pao would not have done anything, and Extreme Speed into Zamazenta would have done very little.
There's the Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam coming out from this Choice Spec Flutter Mane. Not going to knock out anything immediately, because this Chien-Pao is holding on to its Focus Sash. There's Behemoth Bash. That's it! Tyler Deacy into the semifinals!
Yeah, and that was a real clean set. And I mean, some of it was the limitations of Rayquaza as a restricted, and somewhat of the team, but also Tai just played it really well, and definitely played towards the win conditions in a lot of cases. Particularly in Game 1, seeing the issues that Zamazenta had with Fluttermane and saying, okay, not gonna let Fluttermane do that to me again, and winning Game 2 in a lot more clean of a fashion, I guess.
I mean, that's just how good Amoonguss is, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Amoonguss and Zamazenta are very good. Like, that's not necessarily news to a lot of people.
Not at all. And, yeah, that's a really quick, clean set for this quarterfinal round. And congratulations to Tyler Deacy for advancing on to the semifinal round. David Huttner, at least he got some points with Rayquaza, which I think is a pretty good thing in this book.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been getting points with Rayquaza and will continue getting points with Rayquaza, but yeah, it's a fun team. Definitely kind of hit a wall there, but I do think it's a pretty fun team.
I was going to say that was quite literally a wall, because look at Zamazenta's shield.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
All right, we'll be right back. Semifinal round comes up right after this break.